Isthmus energy systems is an idea that grew over time. I have been interested in sustainable agriculture for all of my life since I was around the age of 11. I read the book Ishmael by Daniel Quinn, and it really influenced me to view our agricultural system and human history for over the past, 10,000 years um, since the agricultural revolution, and and to really believe that we need a real fundamental shift in society at the level that the agricultural revolution was at this point to make us um, sustainable. And so I found my way into the solar industry. It was a little later in life, when I was 20, 26, I believe. I had I had been working and going to community college, and I was doing window and gutter cleaning. I would listen to headphones of audiobooks and music, and I listened to some really good books, like Bold by Peter Diamandis, and there's a book that Bill Nye put out that is about how to save the world, basically. And there's a lot of good ideas in there. And since 2016, I've been in the solar industry, and I have been thinking, since we've been working out in the farmlands, of the potential for merging regenerative agriculture and ecosystem restoration with renewable energy infrastructure. And the potential is just so huge. A lot of this farmland is really just used for ethanol or animal feed. And so if you do rotational grazing of livestock, you displace a lot of the need for that animal feed in the first place, and we don't need ethanol. And so it's actually possible, and what I intend is to develop gasification systems that use waste streams and use regeneratively grown biomass. And so gasification is an old technology, and it's been advanced, and there's potential to use plasma or microwave gasification systems, and I'm especially interested in flash joule heating that can make graphene. Researchers out of Rice Lab developed this flash graphene method, and it's totally revolutionary. Maybe they want to franchise. Their business is called Universal Matter, and I'm sure that there's ways to build on their research and develop flash joule heating. They also can use it for urban mining of electronics, and so I'd like to develop a recycling center first, and build a workshop space, and develop a solar panel recycling aggregator that collects waste from the solar construction industry and gives it a second life, or aggregates it and sorts it into commodity batches to be sent to be properly disposed of. But there's a lot of solar panels that have a useful second life, and we could restore some with clear epoxy, especially for agricultural and industrial applications. Behind a fence, damaged solar panels could be used safely. And there's a lot of decommissioned systems that have totally good solar panels that are just being upgraded, and so giving them a second life for carbon removal and industrial microgrid infrastructure, I intend to develop what I'm calling permaculture industrial parks. And so we'd like to use regenerative agrivoltaics to provide power and biomass as kind of the foundation of this little business ecosystem. And then there are direct air capture technologies that can use electricity and some chemistry to extract CO2 from the atmosphere to get a pure stream of CO2. Biomass can be used to make syngas, synthesis gas, using gasification. And yeah, waste streams, even hazardous waste streams, can be turned into syngas and neutralized to be made not hazardous anymore. There's even the potential to mine using plants to extract metals from the soil in a process that's known as phytomining or agromining. And that can work together with enhanced mineralization, another carbon removal method that involves spreading minerals that can react with the CO2 in the air, and you can fertilize soil with it and then grow plants that extract metals out of the soil. And biochar is a step in the process that you can use pyrolysis to make biochar, and then you can even further refine the biochar to make graphite and graphene products. I'm especially interested in cleaning the hazardous waste known as PFAS or PFAS, these forever chemicals that the EPA just made a ruling to regulate it. And it's good because it's been like a continuous supply of toxins out into the environment. I'd like to develop these 3D printed rovers, robotics, to go and monitor the soil conditions, what's called measurement, reporting, and verification. And so this is very much like in our solar installations. We have a DAS, which is a data acquisition system. And so this collects information from sensors, and it reports it using a data logger and a cellular modem. And so you have real-time monitoring of the site conditions. And an autonomous rover could have cameras, so people could remote operate it for site security or for inspections. And you can have a thermal camera, so you can do infrared thermography for performance monitoring of electrical equipment, and the connections and the cells to check for hotspots, and there's even the potential to use ultrasonic sensors to have an even better view of the performance of electrical connections, because there's a high frequency ultrasonic sound that the ultrasonic sensors can detect. And before it becomes a thermal event, the ultrasonic sensors can detect poor connections. And so the rovers for solar and industrial monitoring have a lot of potential. The thermal cameras can even be used to detect methane. And so I'd also like to develop these gasification systems to produce bio oil to assist in the emerging market of sealing these wells with bio oil, because there's a lot of abandoned wells or uncapped wells. They leak methane, and so we can actually put bio oil in the abandoned well. And a company called Charm has really pioneered this process. uh, using carbon credits to finance this, and it's a much more stable form of getting the carbon underground. It's literally called liquid smoke. It's just with a clean biomass to produce this bio oil. There's really no toxins in it, and I have heard that it can be used as a flavoring, like a liquid smoke kind of barbecue flavoring. And so the other method of injecting CO2 underground is potentially hazardous with a lot of pressures, and supercritical CO2 is also a supersaline solution, which means it'll draw things into solution. It'll dissolve materials that wouldn't normally dissolve together, and it's also has its viscosity puts it so it's going to find its way into every little nook and cranny. It'll get into all the pores of the geology, and it'll dissolve the different sort of hydrocarbons and other toxins that are in the bedrock. And if the pressure and the drilling activity causes an earthquake, which there have been reports that it has, and just through human drilling activities, it's possible we could fracture the capstones that keep this saline aquifer isolated from the groundwater table. So basically, through injecting CO2, the supercritical CO2 into these deep underground saline aquifers, what we're doing could lead to contaminating the groundwater and causing earthquakes. And they also intend to use that to extract more oil through the enhanced oil recovery. And so that method is really tied to the old infrastructure, and there may be a useful application for it, I believe, if we do it offshore, possibly, where it's really far away from populations and potential ecological impacts. And I believe we'll develop floating wind and solar that will power these really vast ocean infrastructure projects, and we'll have like marine agriculture, so it's like vertical farming down in the ocean, with kelp and like hanging baskets of you can have like the crustaceans and fish farms, and then you can even have floating structures and whole like commercial industrial facilities that float. And so you can do vertical farming with freshwater stuff there too. And then all these carbon removal technologies can come together with green hydrogen, and both on land and at sea, you could use chemical manufacturing to use direct air capture, green hydrogen to make methane, and they already take nitrogen out of the air in the Haber-Bosch process to make ammonia. But basically, green hydrogen is very difficult to deal with, and so having nitrogen or CO2 to immediately make another product like methane or ammonia, you don't need to hang on to the hydrogen, and so you get a stable product. And there's a very large chemical manufacturing industry that needs these molecules, and so we can replace the fossil sources of these products with a carbon neutral alternative now. And as we wean our way off of these ammonia fertilizers, and we reduce our use of methane in turbines, we can we can actually add carbon capture to existing natural gas plants and just use the synthetic methane as a carbon neutral source. And with the carbon capture on the natural gas plant that's been converted to synthetic methane, you can actually get carbon negative products by then fully capturing the CO2 again, and you can mineralize it into an aggregate. And there's a lot of other methods that have been devised at this point to do chemical manufacturing, making carbon fiber, and people are inventing new things all the time. So I would like to develop these systems and focus on the power infrastructure, developing the agrivoltaic carbon removal microgrid infrastructure, and finding partnerships with groups that specialize in different parts of these circular economies and develop these permaculture industrial parks. I want to kind of focus in on the recycling side of things and the advanced manufacturing with 3D printed robotics. I want to get long and short duration energy storage I'd use solar inverters and probably like EG4 batteries, and the gasification systems and synthesis gas can be long duration energy storage. And so I really think that you can build a competitive off-grid system as a microgrid that could connect to the main grid later, but you can get it built and permitted, and you can operate it much sooner at much less, there is no interconnection cost if it's not connected to the grid. So you are kind of taking all the advantages of kind of the ease of permitting and the development process, and then later, hopefully, interconnection gets streamlined and they develop infrastructure to accept the microgrids. But you also have the advantage of being able to get lower cost land. You have much more flexibility in where you can do this, and you can develop these systems in the desert so that they're a closed loop and they don't need to transmit the power. They're producing high value materials, and you can even integrate vertically integrate advanced manufacturing, and so you're actually able to then deliver final products, and it's all supported by the microgrid. And literally in the desert, you can transform the desert to grassland using the permaculture principles that they're applying to the Great Green Wall project, and that's been developed around the world by figures like Andrew Millison. And I was really influenced by Mark Shepard, who has a farm in the Driftless region of Wisconsin, not far from me. And so this, ecological succession and focus on retaining water in the landscape is like the foundation of permaculture and ecological restoration. And so, I live in the Midwest in Illinois, and I feel a connection with an obligation in this ecology that the bison are the keystone species. And so you really cannot say you've restored the plains or the prairie without the bison. At least it's within our power to do it. And so, it's really not restoring it to pre-industrial conditions until there are millions of bison. And so I think that bison with wind turbines and tall dual axis trackers could work well. They're kind of like a carport, and so it's out of the way. It's made for cars to drive around, so I think the bison will be okay. And basically, conventional, any typical solar installation is perfect for sheep. And so there's a lot of potential there. And people are developing new methods all the time. I want to focus on sort of prototyping and developing these integrated systems, promoting microgrids and supporting these carbon removal circular economies. I have a goal of engaging with the space industry to promote the idea of farming in space to support, the space economy. And I believe that eventually it's true that the space economy will be able to fully meet the needs of Earth's economy, and it'll be a choice of convenience for us, or just a personal choice of how we want to do business at that point. But I do believe that it's possible to fully restore the Earth to pre-industrial conditions. But we need to act fast because literally the permafrost is melting, and there's these methane hydrates are interesting form of methane that's frozen in the poles in the Arctic, and so the water's warming, the ice is melting. It has these feedback loops that's accelerating the warming, and honestly, they don't really know like how fast it could happen. And all of the experts are basically saying that if it gets much further down this path, it's basically going to be irreversible. The total amount of greenhouse gases that humans have added is about to be doubled or tripled or more by all these other sources that we're unlocking that have been frozen for like a million years. And so we've been going in and out of these interglacial periods for like all of human history. And so everything that's alive since that time period has evolved in these conditions. And so it's just a very big risk for total ecological collapse that would have really big implications, and we'd lose the coastline, like 150 feet of sea level rise, and there's not a whole lot we could do about it. Once it crossed a certain threshold, it would be unstoppable. But I really believe we have all the technology now, and if we really focus our efforts, we can very rapidly become resilient so that we're using all the nature-based solutions, we're using all the most advanced science and technology, and we're developing an advanced economy that really provides for the well-being of, all the humans on Earth and all the ecosystems that we rely on. So I do believe that an abundant energy economy will bring about a more equitable distribution of resources, and that I'd like to focus on advancing science and technology to solving the problems of the world, and that ultimately energy is the currency of the universe, and so providing energy to communities is what will give them prosperity. And so we need to develop sustainable food and energy systems, and we need to restore the ecosystems. And that's what Isthmus Energy Systems is doing. Basically, an isthmus is a land bridge between two continents, and to me it represents a paradigm shift, and it's like a period of migration and from one culture into another, and one way of life into another, from learning from the past to build a sustainable future. That is why I chose the name Isthmus Energy Systems. Also, because it's at the intersection of all the different forms of energy being exchanged, from electrical energy, chemical energy,